Yo, Adrian! I did it!
Welcome to the first episode of the Balboa Chronicles, Life Lessons from the Italian Stallion. Today we're going to look at a clip from Rocky from 1976, and the episode title is Gaps. But before we get into it, if you like this kind of content and you'd like to get updates on when new videos in this series drop, please consider subscribing to the channel, click the like button on the video, and more than anything, we would love to hear your comments on this video, the videos that come after. What's some of your favorite Rocky scenes and why do you love them? How have they been meaningful to your life? But if you could subscribe to the channel, we really would appreciate it. So let's get into it. Adrian Panino. If you know anything about the Rocky series, you know one of the main characters, probably the most important character in the whole series besides Rocky, is Adrian. This is Paulie's sister, the shy one, the one that people say is retarded. In this entire series, we find people who are isolated and alone. Rocky's alone, Mickey's alone. Paulie and Adrian live together, but both of them are emotionally alone because there's just so much differences between them. Whereas Paulie's basically a loudmouth, lazy, entitled mooch who works at the Shamrock meat packing plant. Adrian is a tender, unassuming, hard-working, smart woman with low self-esteem who also happens to be cripplingly shy. In other words, Paulie and Adrian are polar opposites. Now, we never learn too much about Adrian's past, but on her first date with Rocky, she reveals that her mother had told her, "You weren't born with much of a body, so you better develop your brain." And she says this in response to Rocky, whose father had said, "You weren't born with much of a brain, so you better start using your body." So right from the beginning, we start seeing these parallels and connections. Both characters have had their identities dictated to them by their parents. Rocky thinks he's dumb. Adrian thinks she's the ugly duckling. These two are really awkward together at first, but it doesn't take long for their inseparable bond to take shape. Each one sees something that the other doesn't see in themselves. And after Rocky calls himself a bum, Adrian says, "I don't think you're a bum." To which Rocky replies, "Well, I'm at least half a bum." And when the two share their first kiss, Rocky removes Adrian's glasses and her hat and says,
Always knew you was pretty.
Rocky convinces her that he's not teasing her. And for the first time in her life, Adrian truly feels seen. Nobody else, however, seems to understand how they see each other. And once they start dating, Paulie gets a little bit curious. He doesn't get it. He sees his sister as this homely wallflower. What would a guy like Rocky see in her? He's street and she's a homebody. And this curiosity leads to a very interesting conversation.
I don't see it. What's the attraction?
I don't know. Fills gaps, I guess.
What's gaps?
I don't know, gaps. She's got gaps, I got gaps. Together we fill gaps. I don't know.
You see, Paulie just doesn't get it. He's too dense in the head. Even with Rocky's elementary explanation, it doesn't help Paulie understand how relationships can complement one another. As seemingly low functioning as Rocky is, his answer reveals that he's found something. He's learned something. He's well aware of his own inadequacies, but he's also observing that where he may be weak in some areas, Adrian's strong, and vice versa. On their own, they're less, but together, they're whole. Or as Rocky so eloquently puts it.
I think we make a real sharp couple of coconuts.
My relationship with my wife is very much the same. Now, we're not a couple of coconuts, but we do complement and balance each other perfectly. We learn from each other, we challenge one another, we affirm one another, and together, we're whole. I'm convinced that every man needs an Adrian, because Adrian is home. When you truly love someone with a pure, genuine kind of love, you really see them. You get them. You see all the things they don't necessarily see in themselves. And when you can communicate that to them, when you can demonstrate your belief in that, they begin to see it too. They can begin to believe that about themselves. That's a beautiful, powerful thing. To take it a step further, the Bible tells us so many things about how God loves us. In fact, God is ultimately the only one who can fill the gaps in our souls and the gap that our sin has placed between Him and us. And that begs a very important question. Do you really believe God loves you? That question and your answer to it will define your whole life, because if you believe God loves you, that belief will change the way you live your life. Often God expresses His great love for us by sending us a Rocky, a Mickey, or an Adrian to help fill those earthly human gaps in our hearts. I've personally experienced a deeper understanding of God's love for me through my wife Annie, and that's only served to further reinforce the fact that God's desire is for me to not be alone. He brought my Adrian to me at just the right time when I was feeling really low and alone. So what's the lesson? Well, there are probably several, but in short, I think it's this. We're all weak in certain areas where others are strong. Aligning ourselves with the right person or the right people can lead to growth in our own lives. At the same time, we can be that for someone else. In the area of marriage, that's the picture of the two becoming one. Not just in a physical sense, but also emotionally and spiritually. If we choose to see someone's heart, if we have compassion for them, and if we continue to be with them on the deepest level, the gaps are filled and the two become something very special together. That's a blessing to the watching world as well. When someone like that is in our corner, the limits of what we can accomplish begin to lessen, and we begin to believe we just might be able to achieve the impossible. Thanks for watching. The next episode is going to be the quote, "Go the distance." And that's going to be a really interesting dive. But again, if you wouldn't mind, click that subscribe button, like the video, and share your comments in the comment section below. And until next time.
All right. Ding, ding.